a very warm welcome to you. It is a wonderful thing to have you here, settling in for a quiet moment of peace. This story was crafted to be a gentle companion, a soft place for your thoughts to rest, and to help you find your way toward easy, peaceful sleep. If you find comfort within these words, a symbol like a subscription to our small corner or a kind comment is always a most welcome thing. Tonight, we will be visiting the Vale of Murmuring Scents, a place cradled between soft hills and filled with a quiet, fragrant magic. Here, among the glowing lumina moss and the soft sigh of flowers opening to the sun, a perfumer is building a fragrance that feels like the safest and warmest of embraces. And perhaps you'll find a little of that sanctuary for yourself as well. Chapter 1. The Quiet Foundation. The old workshop was a vessel of calm, holding within its warm wooden walls the collected quiet of many years. It smelled of things that were patient and enduring, of beeswax used to polish the smooth wooden counters, of dried herbs hanging in fragrant bunches from the low beams, and of the faint, clean scent of old paper from the books that lined a single sturdy shelf. Light, the color of weak tea, filtered through a semi-wavy pane of glass, illuminating the gentle dance of dust motes in the still air. Here, in this peaceful enclosure, Bastian felt the day's concerns simply drift away, leaving only the tranquil hum of his own quiet thoughts. He sat upon his favorite stool, its wooden seat worn smooth by time, and held a small empty vial up to the soft light, turning it over in his fingers. The glass felt cool and solid, a promise of something waiting to be filled. He was thinking, in his slow and measured way, about the idea of a scent that could feel like a sanctuary, a fragrance that was not a memory of a place, but the feeling of a place, a gentle architecture of aroma that could create a sense of being safely and warmly held. One could not, he mused, build such a thing from loud or demanding notes. Its foundation must be something simple, honest, and deeply reassuring. His thoughts settled on the smell of the earth itself, specifically the dark, rich soil of the vale just after a soft morning mist had passed over it. It was a scent of clean renewal and profound stability, a fragrance that spoke of deep roots and patient growth. This, he knew, would be the grounding note, the very floor upon which his scented structure would be built. He felt a quiet sense of purpose settle over him, as gentle and welcome as a warm blanket. It was time to begin. With a soft scraping sound, he pushed his stool back and rose. He moved with an unhurried grace, his actions flowing one into the next with a peaceful economy. He slipped a few empty glass vials into a soft leather pouch. The clinking sound they made both muted and reassuring, and pulled on a pair of well-worn, comfortable boots. The old wooden door of his workshop opened with a familiar, gentle creak, a sound that felt less like a complaint and more like a fond sigh. The air that greeted him was cool and damp, carrying with it the thousand blended murmurs of the vale. He stepped out onto the path, his boots making soft imprints in the damp soil. The world was painted in gentle shades of gray and green. The morning mist hanging like a soft veil over the low rolling hills that cradled the valley. The air felt thick and nourishing to breathe, filled with the delicate scent of wet leaves and the clean mineral perfume of the nearby stream. The sound of the water was a constant soothing whisper, a liquid lullaby that had accompanied all his days in this quiet corner of the world. It was a perfect morning for a gentle walk. Bastian followed the meandering trail of the tea-colored stream, its gentle murmur the only sound to accompany the soft padding of his footsteps. He felt the light dampness of the mist settle on his skin, a cool and pleasant sensation that made him feel connected to the quiet, breathing world around him. He did not rush, for the earth he sought was not a thing to be hunted down, but a thing to be arrived at when the moment was right. He simply walked, observing the way the mist softened the edges of everything, making the familiar landscape feel wonderfully new and full of gentle mystery. He found the place he was looking for, where the stream made a slow, wide bend, creating a small bank of dark, loamy earth. Here the scent was strongest, a pure and comforting perfume of deep soil and clean water. He knelt down, the dampness of the ground seeping pleasantly through the fabric of his trousers. The air felt particularly still in this small cove, and the only sound was the hushed gurgle of the water as it slid past. All was as it should be. He took one of the vials from his pouch and with his fingers gently scooped a small amount of the dark, fragrant earth into the glass. He did not pack it tightly, allowing it to remain loose and airy to breathe. He felt the cool, yielding texture against his skin, a grounding touch that seemed to connect him to the slow, steady pulse of the world. He stoppered the vial and held it in his palm, feeling its slight, reassuring weight. He had found his foundation. Chapter 2. Gathering the Walls. With the scent of the earth safely tucked into his pouch, Bastian continued his walk, leaving the stream's edge to follow a path that wound gently upward. This trail, less defined and softer underfoot, led toward the sunnier, more open spaces of the vale. As he climbed, the mist began to thin, dissolving into the air like a pleasant, fading thought. Patches of soft blue sky began to appear overhead, and with them came the first warm rays of the morning sun, which slanted down through the leaves in long, peaceful beams. The light felt wonderfully warm on his shoulders, a gentle weight that seemed to soothe him from the outside in. The path opened into a wide, generous meadow, a beautiful expanse of green dotted with 1,000 tiny blossoms. The air here was warm and carried a different kind of fragrance, one of honey and warm grass and the faint, sweet perfume of nectar. This was Nora's meadow, a place she tended with a quiet devotion that was plain to see in the health and vibrancy of every single plant. It was here that Bastian hoped to find the walls for his fragrance, something to stand upon the foundation of earth and create a sense of gentle, warm enclosure. He saw her from across the meadow, a calm figure in a simple linen dress, moving slowly among the flowers. Nora was a person who seemed to be a part of the landscape itself, as natural and serene as the meadow she tended. She looked up as he approached, her face breaking into a soft, genuine smile that needed no words to convey its welcome. He returned the smile, a quiet acknowledgement of their shared appreciation for this peaceful place passing between them. Their friendship was like that, built on comfortable silences and mutual understanding. He gestured with a gentle sweep of his hand toward a cluster of bell-shaped flowers, their petals a pale, creamy yellow. "The sun size," he said, his voice soft so as not to disturb the morning's calm. "They seem especially happy today." Nora simply nodded, her eyes full of a quiet warmth. She knew why he had come. These flowers were a marvel of the vale, their petals having the texture of the softest suede. They remained tightly closed, holding their fragrance deep within, until the sun's rays were warm enough to coax them open. Bastian found a comfortable spot to sit on the soft grass, content to simply wait and watch. He leaned back on his hands, tilting his face up to the sun, feeling its heat soak into his skin. His breathing slowed and deepened, matching the lazy rhythm of the hum of a few nearby bees as they drifted from blossom to blossom. This, too, was part of his process, not just the gathering of ingredients, but the absorption of the feeling of the place where they grew. A scent, he believed, should hold not just the aroma of a flower, but the memory of the sun that warmed it. And then it began. As the warmth of the sun intensified, a soft collective sigh seemed to ripple through the patch of yellow flowers. It was a sound so faint, it was almost more of a feeling, a gentle exhalation of the plants themselves. One by one, the creamy bells began to unfurl their petals, releasing their fragrance into the warm air. The scent that rose from them was exquisite, a delicate perfume of honeyed pears and the pure, clean smell of sunshine itself. Bastian breathed it in deeply, letting the warm, sweet scent fill his senses. It was a fragrance that felt like happiness, like a slow, peaceful morning with nothing to do and nowhere to be. It was the perfect scent for the walls of his creation, an aroma that would create a sense of bright, cheerful, and loving enclosure. He watched Nora moving among the now open blossoms, her touch incredibly gentle as she began to gather a few for him. She brought him a small handful of the delicate flowers, their petals still warm from the sun. He accepted them with a quiet word of thanks, their soft, suede-like texture a delight against his palm. He placed them carefully into another of his glass vials, their beautiful fragrance already filling the small container with its golden light. He felt the warmth of the meadow deep inside him now, a pleasant, soothing sensation that settled around his heart. He had his foundation, and now he had his walls. Chapter 3. The Roof of Memory. To find the final piece of his fragrant architecture, the sheltering roof, Bastian knew he must travel deeper into the vale to a place where the sunlight grew soft and the silence grew deep. He bid a quiet farewell to Nora and her sun-drenched meadow and followed a barely there path that led into the cool shadows of the oldest part of the woods. The change in atmosphere was immediate and profound. The air grew cooler, and the sounds of the open meadow were replaced by a hushed and reverent quiet. The entrance to the Lulwood Grove was not marked by a gate or a sign, but by a subtle shift in the quality of the silence. It became a living presence, a deep and resonant stillness that seemed to absorb all worldly concerns. The trees here were ancient, their trunks thick, and their bark as smooth and cool as polished river clay. They rose high into the sky, their branches interlocking to form a dense canopy that transformed the bright daylight into a soft, green-tinted twilight. What made the Lulwood trees so wondrous, however, were their leaves. Each leaf, shaped like a perfect slender teardrop, held within it a soft internal light. This light, a gentle phosphorescence of pale gold, shimmered and pulsed with a slow, calming rhythm, creating an ever-shifting dappled pattern on the soft, mossy ground below. To stand in the grove was to stand beneath the ceiling of 1,000 tiny living lanterns, each one contributing its small, gentle glow to the overall peace of the place. Bastian walked slowly into the heart of the grove, his footsteps making no sound on the thick carpet of moss. The air here was rich with the deep, sweet scent of the tree's resin, a comforting and ancient perfume that smelled of deep peace and long, slow time. He found a spot where the roots of one of the largest trees formed a natural seat and settled himself down, leaning his back against the cool, smooth bark of the great trunk. He closed his eyes for a moment, simply breathing in the tranquil atmosphere. He placed his hand flat against the bark of the tree and felt, more than heard, a low, resonant hum. This was the unique magic of the whisper wood, as it was sometimes called. When the slightest current of air moved through the high branches, the ancient wood would vibrate with this deep, soothing frequency, a sound that felt like a gentle, reassuring murmur from the heart of the world itself. The vibration traveled from the trunk into his own body, a gentle thrumming that seemed to loosen any remaining tension he held, calming his own inner rhythms until they matched the slow, steady pulse of the wood. He sat there for a long while, feeling utterly and completely sheltered. The gentle, shifting light from the leaves above, the cool, solid support of the trunk at his back, the sweet, resinous air he breathed, and the deep, calming hum that vibrated through his very being all combined to create a profound sense of safety. This was more than a roof. It was a sanctuary. It was the feeling of being held and protected by something ancient, kind, and immensely patient. After some time, he noticed a small bead of golden sap that had welled up on the bark beside him. It was a perfect, translucent tear, glowing with its own faint inner light and carrying the concentrated essence of the grove's perfume. He knew this was what he had come for. Using a small, clean leaf, he carefully collected the single drop of resin. It felt wonderfully warm and slightly sticky to the touch. He placed the precious bead into his last empty vial, its sweet, deep scent instantly filling the small glass space with the memory of the grove's profound peace. He stayed for a moment longer, offering a silent thanks to the ancient trees for their gift. As he rose to leave, he felt a sense of completeness. the foundation of earth, the walls of sunlight, and now the roof of deep, sheltering wood. He had gathered all the feelings he needed. He walked out of the grove and back into the gentle daylight of the vale, carrying the deep, humming silence of the lulwood with him. Chapter 4. The Hearthlight Within. Back within the familiar embrace of his workshop, Bastian felt the quiet contentment of his journey settle deep within him. The air inside seemed to welcome him, the familiar sense of beeswax and dried herbs feeling like a soft, reassuring greeting. He gently placed the 3 vials upon his smooth wooden workbench, each one a small vessel holding a different aspect of the vale's gentle magic. The dark earth, the sun-warmed flowers, the single glowing bead of lulwood sap. They sat together in a peaceful assembly, waiting. On a small shelf near his workbench grew a patch of lumina moss, its soft velvety texture a pleasing counterpoint to the hard wood. In the normal, quiet state of the workshop, it emitted only the faintest of glows. But now, as Bastian looked upon his gathered treasures, feeling a deep and simple satisfaction with his morning's work, the moss began to respond. A warm golden light began to bloom from its depths, growing steadily brighter until it bathed his corner of the workshop in a soft, candle-like radiance that flickered with not a hint of agitation. This gentle, waxing glow felt like a confirmation of his own inner state, an outer reflection of the quiet, hearth-like warmth that was building inside him. He smiled softly. It was time to bring the scents together. He took out a large, heavy glass mortar and pestle, their surfaces cool and perfectly clean. His movements were slow and mindful, each action performed with a deliberate, focused grace. He was not merely mixing ingredients. He was weaving feelings into a single harmonious whole. He began with the foundation. He gently tipped the fragrant dark earth into the mortar, its clean mineral scent rising to meet him. Then he added the sunshine flowers, their sweet, honeyed pear fragrance layering beautifully over the grounding note of the soil. As he worked, the golden light from the lumina moss seemed to intensify, its warm glow casting his focused expression and his gentle hands in soft relief against the workshop's quiet shadows. The only sounds were the soft scrape and turn of the pestle and his own slow, even breathing. He did not rush the process, allowing the fragrances to get to know one another, to find their own perfect balance. He worked with a deep, intuitive sense, a knowledge that came not from books, but from a lifetime of listening to the language of plants. The air in the workshop grew thick with a beautiful, complex perfume, a scent that was at once grounding and uplifting, earthy and sweet. It already felt wonderfully comforting, a fragrance that spoke of soft grass under a warm sun. Finally, he took the last vial, the one containing the single precious bead of lulwood sap. With the tip of a small wooden stylus, he carefully lifted the glowing resin and placed it into the center of the mixture. As it touched the other ingredients, a soft pulse of fragrance seemed to be released, a deep, sweet, resinous note that acted not as an addition, but as an embrace. It was the roof, settling perfectly over the foundation and walls, enclosing the other scents and deepening their character, giving them a sense of profound and lasting peace. He stirred the mixture one last time, the beautiful aroma now complete. The lumina moss on his shelf was glowing with its fullest, warmest light, its steady golden radiance filling the entire room. Bastian felt a quiet joy, a sense of brightness that settled deep in his bones. He had not imposed his will upon the ingredients, but had simply invited them to come together. The scent was not just something he had made. It was something the veil had offered, and he had been privileged enough to listen. Chapter 5. The Open Door. The fragrance was complete, resting in a soul-clear vial upon the windowsill where the last of the twilight brushed against the glass. The blended ingredients had settled into a beautiful pale golden liquid that seemed to hold the soft light of the evening. Bastian had spent the afternoon in quiet contentment, allowing the scents to meld and mature, and now, as the day softened into dusk, he felt it was time. The workshop was filled with a deep, peaceful quiet, punctuated only by the distant melodic call of a lone bellbird singing its evening song. He picked up the vial, its glass feeling smooth and slightly warm in his hand. He unstoppered it and, for a moment, simply held it, allowing the faintest whisper of the fragrance to reach him. It was everything he had hoped for. Then, with a slow and deliberate movement, he tipped the vial and let a single perfect drop fall onto the inside of his wrist. He did not rush to inhale it, but let it settle on his skin, its warmth mingling with his own. When he finally raised his wrist and breathed in, the experience was more profound than he could have imagined. It was not merely a scent, it was a feeling, a place. The first note was the clean, grounding scent of the damp earth, which felt like stepping onto a soft, familiar path. This was followed by the warm, sweet fragrance of the sunside flowers, a scent that bloomed into a feeling of gentle sunlit walls rising around him, and finally, the deep, resinous perfume of the lulwood settled over it all, a sheltering roof that created a sense of absolute safety and profound peace. The fragrance was an invisible room, a gentle architecture built of memory and magic, a sanctuary he could carry with him. He felt a deep sense of release, as if some tension he hadn't even been aware of had simply dissolved from his shoulders. He felt his breathing deepen, his body relax completely into his chair. A profound sense of well-being washed over him, as gentle and thorough as a warm tide. He had set out to build a fragrance that felt like a safe and gentle enclosure, and in the process, he had found that feeling perfectly embodied within himself. All was as it should be. He moved his chair to the open window of his workshop, sitting in the cool evening air. The first stars were beginning to appear in the deep violet sky, small, gentle points of light in the vast, quiet darkness. The cool breeze that drifted in carried the clean scent of the coming night, a fragrance that mingled beautifully with the warm, comforting scent rising from his skin. He felt no desire to be anywhere else, no need to do anything more. He simply sat, a quiet observer of the day's gentle end. The soft golden light from the luminous moss filled the room behind him, a silent testament to the deep contentment he felt. The world outside was settling into its own deep slumber, and he felt a wonderful sense of being a part of that immense, peaceful rhythm. The fragrance he had created was not a barrier to the world, but a way of being within it, perfectly at ease and securely at peace. He closed his eyes, took another slow, deep breath, and felt himself drift on a soft current of pure tranquility.